The pause button has been pressed on Brexit trade talks in London. On Friday evening, EU chief negotiator Michel Barnier said significant divergences remain. He tweeted, after a week of intense negotiations, he and his British counterpart David Frost agreed that conditions for a deal have not been met, with issues of a level playing field, governance and fisheries still outstanding. Barnier and Frost will now brief their principals on the current state of play. Hopes have risen and fallen over the week that a deal was within reach. The next 24 hours look like being crucial in determining the future relationship. Well, let's cross now to our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, who's standing by for us in Brussels. Darren, talks have been suspended. It now goes to the top between Boris Johnson and Ursula von der Leyen on Saturday.
Yeah, indeed. And this is, in many ways, Oliver, where we're always going to end up in this, what is essentially political process. At the end of the day, Michel Barnier and David Frost work for their respective bosses, and it will have to be their bosses' call about whether a deal is passed over the line. But clearly, as has been said out, there are those still what are called significant differences between the two sides. And it is interesting that the Times of London tonight is reporting that one of the key sticking areas is on this area or idea of subsidy, with the European Union insisting that its recovery fund for the coronavirus, that 750 billion euros, Oliver, that you and I talk about an awful lot, it shouldn't be subject to these new or to the regulations, essentially, that would normally in place when it comes to the European Union subsidy laws. Though, of course, the expectation is in a trade deal is that the UK would adhere to those standards when it comes to subsidy. And so there is, from at least the British side, I thought that is unfair, and it's one of the reasons that they are not reaching an agreement tonight. But what's going to happen is we're going to see the British Prime Minister and the EU Commission President have that telephone call tomorrow afternoon. And then we're going to see a meeting of EU ambassadors on Sunday. If there is a deal to be done, they will then decide whether the leaders of the European Union can support what Ursula von der Leyen has potentially agreed to.
Early on Friday, you said that the expectation was that there was a deal to be done. Are you still going to stick by that?
Yeah, I think lots of people still do think there is a deal to be done, and the expectation is that this deal will probably still get over the line. You can judge essentially that statement tonight by Michel Barnier and David Frost as not a good sign, and reading that way, but others are suggesting quite the opposite, saying, well, this is the process. This is the moment. It's going to be the decision of Ursula von der Leyen and Boris Johnson. It was never going to be Michel Barnier and David Frost, and they will have to make that decision. But in the end, it will have to also be, of course, a political decision about what compromises have to be made. Can Boris Johnson potentially sign up to this deal, knowing that maybe some of his own backbenchers will not support it? Weighing on the other side, of course, is the potential economic damage that this would do if there was no deal. And for the European Union as well, of course, there are those calls to take into place, not least of all the views of member states. As we were talking about earlier on, the French suggesting earlier today that they may well veto if they didn't think the deal was good enough. So the expectation, I think, still is that, when it comes to it, when it comes to this phone call tomorrow, there will be a concerted effort to get this deal, not least of all because, of course, we have to remember both sides do want the deal, both publicly and privately. The question is, will it all fall apart at the last minute because politically they don't think it can get over the line? You know what? No one really knows the answer to that. But the expectation still tonight, I think, is that on the balance of things, that it is more likely than not that it will get over the line this weekend.